friends, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. Today I want to talk to you about saving money on beef. I'm sure we all know by now the wildfires that are just streaking across Texas. Unfortunately, it is wiping out a lot of cattle grazing land, and I think we need to be prepared for some skyrocketing beef prices. So today I want to bring you 5 ways to save money on beef. Now we all know that we can save money by eating less meat, right? You know, meatless Monday or serving 2 dishes that are meatless throughout the week. So we all know about that. So I don't want to talk about not eating meat. I want to talk to you about 5 ways to still eat meat, but to do so in a more frugal way so that we can stretch our grocery store dollar. Let's get started. Welcome to Food Prep Guide. My name is Jordan. I'm a homeschooling mom to 3, living on 3 beautiful acres with my wonderful husband. A health crisis forced our family to change the way we think about food. Unfortunately, it also put us in financial hardship. Thankfully, the solution to both challenges was the same: to live off the land as much as possible. For us, that means growing a garden, preserving the harvest, raising chickens, and cooking from scratch. It's definitely a family affair. And friends, too. Meet Stacy, researcher, author, and lifelong learner. She entered the world of food preservation in the crazy days of 2020. She joined a gleaning co-op, and a local grocer offered her clearance produce in bulk. And so the adventure began. Together, we're reclaiming the old ways of food stewardship and teaching them to the next generation. If there's one thing you should know about us, it's that we love Jesus and seek to steward his blessings wisely. Our table always has room for one more, so y'all come join us. The first way that we can save money on beef is by stretching it with vegetables, and in particular, I have the most experience with zucchini and carrots. I know that might sound a little strange, but it actually works really well. Not only are you adding nutrition to the meal, but it can stretch meat without altering the flavor too much, especially when you're talking about adding in some seasonings, maybe even some marinades. The flavors of the zucchini and the carrots really meld well with ground beef. And that's one reason why I pick zucchini in particular, is because it has somewhat of a bland flavor that takes on the flavors of what it cooks with. And then I combine it with carrots because the carrots have just a very slight sweet taste to them. And it doesn't alter the beef flavor all that much, but it just creates like an overall really nice flavor. And so what I do is in the summer when I'm harvesting or just farmers markets, buying it from the store, I will go ahead and mince up zucchini and carrots in a food processor, get it really nice, diced really nice and thin, really nice and tiny, I guess I should say, not strips, but just chunks in your food processor. And then what I do is I put about a pound's worth inside of a gallon-sized bag. I flatten it out so it's nice and flat, and then freeze it. And just flattening it out nice and that, not only does it save storage space in your freezer, but it just allows you to thaw a lot faster so that you're not having to add on a whole bunch of time to your cooking process when it comes time to cook supper. But I will mix zucchini and carrots together, freeze them like that. I don't have one to show you. I actually just fed my chickens 2 weeks ago my last bag of zucchini, frozen zucchini from the freezer. I wanted to eat it, but we got 3 deer this year, praise the Lord, and we needed that freezer space for the deer, just as a holding space to give me time to get it all canned up, and I'm still working through all that. So I had to give that last bag of zucchini to the chickens. They really enjoyed it. So stretching it with vegetables and carrots is a fantastic way to stretch beef. The second way that we save money on beef is by actually using a different type of meat but making it taste like beef. The number 2 options that we use the most often are ground turkey and ground venison. I don't have any ground turkey in my freezer right now, but I do have a pint of ground venison. This is one way that we put up our deer every year. Excuse me, I am recovering from a cold, y'all. So please forgive the quality of my voice at the moment. But we will use ground turkey and ground venison, and we will flavor it with beef broth powder. Orrington Farms is my favorite brand for this. It's just a little bit cleaner than the beef bouillon, the other brands of beef bouillon, I guess. and it's just a higher quality, I feel like, and it tastes fantastic. So we will take ground turkey or ground venison, and normally when you're using this beef broth powder, you would mix it with water to make beef broth. But when you're trying to flavor something to taste like beef, you don't add water. You just use this basically as just like a sprinkle on seasoning, and it just helps add a more beef-like flavor to something that's not necessarily beef. It's not ideal when you're really wanting that beef, but I will tell you that my husband is a beef fanatic, and he is not a huge fan of ground turkey, but I have made meatloaves, Salisbury steaks, stroganoffs, all sorts of things with ground turkey flavored this way, and he didn't even know it was beef. I hope you're not watching this, baby. Okay, number 3 way to save on beef. My secret's out. Number 3 way to save on beef is to buy not ground beef. Like most of these tips that I'm thinking is mostly ground beef because it's hard to stretch whole cuts of beef. So just bear that in mind. But this third tip is to buy a whole piece of meat and then grind it yourself. So a lot of times the meat section of the grocery store will run sales on the kind of lower quality cuts of meat. They're not bad by any means, but it's just not your sirloin, your sirloin or your filet mignon or whatever. It's your chuck roast and your round steaks and your bottom rounds and all of those types of things that are just a little bit tougher. And so they will put those on sale a little bit more often than those higher quality cuts of meats. And a lot of times, if you can shop the sales, you can get a big chuck roast or the bottom round or a round steak for a lower price per pound, and then grind it yourself. And it will just become even larger volume of ground beef once ground. So all you need for this is some way to ground that meat. This is the grinder that we use. It attaches to your countertop. It's manual. For our family, whenever we are investing in some sort of food prep or preservation tool, we always go manual so that we are not reliant on power or electricity to be able to use that tool that we just invested in. They absolutely make electric grinders. We do have one. It was gifted to us, and we do use that. If we watched our rendering lard video recently, you will see that in action, and I will link that in the description box below if you're interested, because actually rendering lard can be another way to lower the cost of beef. If you are purchasing beef directly from a farmer, you can use the fat and not let that fat go to waste. You use that fat and turn it into lard, which can be a butter alternative. And the more products you can produce from that cut of beef or that half a cow or a quarter of a cow, the lower the overall price decreases. You can get your beef broth, you can get your bone broth, you can render lard, and then you actually have your cuts of meat and then some that you can grind up. And that's another way to save on beef prices. But electric grinder, manual grinder, some way to grind your own meat, you can often save a lot of money that way. Okay, number 4 way to save on beef is to stretch it with cooked lentils. In a recent video, I talked to you about the incredible value of lentils and how they are underestimated and just a fantastic pantry staple to have on hand because you can use this as an alternative to so many different things. So I do recommend soaking lentils overnight before you plan on using them. So this is something that takes a little bit of forethought and planning when you are going to be stretching your beef, but I will say a fantastic just workflow that I have found is I will get a 5-pound chub of ground beef from the grocery store, bring it home the night before that I plan on doing this. I will sprout 5 pounds, I will do about 3 pounds because once sprouted they bulk up, and once they get in the water they bulk up. So 5 pounds of dried lentils turns into way more than 5 pounds of cooked up lentils. But I will take around 3 pounds of dried lentils and I will soak them the night before. Go to the grocery store, get my 5-pound chub of ground beef. When I get home, I will put on those soaked lentils on a pot and just let them simmer while I'm getting my ground beef prepared. And I will just cut out 1-pound sections of the ground beef. Actually, it would be easier to just do it all together in one huge bowl, but I have a really big bowl that I do this in. But you would just put all 5 pounds of the ground beef in that huge bowl,
get your soaked lentils that have now been simmering. I try to let them simmer for about 30 minutes before transferring into my bowl. Strain out the water, put them into the bowl with your ground beef, mix it all really, really, really well. This is a jar of red lentils and green lentils. I do recommend using red lentils for this. I just find that the texture is better when you're biting into ground beef. The texture is just more matching to the ground beef, but also the color. The green lentils tend to stand out a little bit more, and when you're mixing it into ground beef, those red lentils just seem to work a little bit better. So I do recommend red lentils for this process. But once you have your ground beef and your lentils all mixed together, you can then portion them out into 1 pound sizes. The way that this works, or the end product that you end up with, is you've turned that 5 pound chub of ground beef into 10 pounds of stretch ground beef. So it's just a fantastic way to save money on beef using lentils. Okay, last but not least, I think, yep, number 5 way to save on beef is to get together, and I think I kind of touched on this earlier, but it's to get together with family or friends and go in together on a cow, whether that be a whole cow, half a cow, or a quarter cow. Whenever you can buy direct from the farmer, you are generally going to save money. Now, that's not always the case because, I mean, that was probably the case 10, 15 years ago and backwards, but beef prices have just risen. So now, even buying direct from the farmer, a lot of times you're going to pay a little bit more per pound or per ounce than you would at the grocery store, but that meat is going to be a lot higher quality than what you can get at the grocery store. Not only that, and this is what I touched on earlier, you're getting so much more than the meat when you do it this way. A lot of times when you purchase from the farmer, you can get the bones either for free or very, very cheap, so that you can also get the cow, get the bones. You're already going to have the fat on the meat from the cow portions. So you can get beef broth, bone broth, render your lard, or actually it would be tallow. I think when it comes from beef cow, it's called tallow, not lard. Lard is pork fat that comes from pigs. And then you're getting your cuts of meat. And then you can turn that 1 cow or half a cow, whatever you're going in on, you can then grind it yourself, use those whole cuts, grind it yourself. You can package up all sorts of, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds with lentils, and you can make that cow stretch phenomenally. Not only, look at that fuzzy. Anyway, sorry, got distracted. So if you are going to be doing it this way, not only are you creating a lot of products from that beef, but you're also locking in that price for 6 months to a year. A lot of times when we purchase a cow locally, no matter, even if you're only getting half a cow or a quarter cow, that amount of meat can last you 6 months to a year if you kind of portion it out good. So you're essentially, when you buy that cow, you're essentially locking in that price for 6 months to a year. So when we're looking at, with all these wildfires in Texas, when we're looking at the prices of beef that are more than likely about to skyrocket, purchasing now can lock in those prices so that 6 months to a year from now, you're not having to purchase at that inflated price. So I hope that was helpful to y'all. These are ways that my family has used to just save money on beef in the past, and I'm going to be ramping up those efforts now in preparation for those beef prices to skyrocket, unfortunately. If any of you watching are in Texas, in Oklahoma, those areas that are affected, we are praying for y'all. It breaks our hearts to see the news coverage of what's going on down there. And it's just not right. Okay, but we are praying for y'all, and I hope this was helpful to you, and we will see you next time. Bye.